The year is 2006. Casino Royale is released in theaters, YouTube was bought by Google, and Nintendo is in the second year of the DS's lifespan.
The Nintendo Shit Cube!
With gaining momentum from the release of the DS Lite, titles such as Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, Super Mario Bros., and other fan favorites, Nintendo released Pokémon Ranger. While seen on the surface as a hardware showcase due to the heavy involvement of the DS stylus and touch-based controls in the core gameplay, the game itself brings more to the table than just a hardware showcase. It in fact brings a new perspective to the overall Pokemon world and a unique gameplay besides being a circle simulator.
Get the fuck out of here.
Let's talk about it. First, I wanted to mention that I will be talking about the first game in the Ranger series titled Pokémon Ranger. In future videos I will cover Shadows of Almia and Guardian Signs, since both have warranted editions that deserve their own videos. This video is just my opinion. If you dislike it, let's talk about it in the comments, since I wanted to make this video to spark conversation about the Ranger games, with the hope of this video convincing people to at least give the Ranger series a shot. With that in mind, I'll keep as many spoilers out of this video as possible. Only early game spoilers as well as a few boss fights will be in this video. With those points out of the way, let's get started. Pokémon Ranger to me has one of the best sprite works in the early DS era of Pokémon. Coming off the tails of the exceptional GBA era sprite work, the upgrade from a 15-bit sprite palette to an 18-bit sprite palette gave developers exceptional range and color variation. To put that into application, the Game Boy Advance had roughly 32,876 different colors that can be used. The DS had a whopping 262,144 unique colors for developers to use. With such a large leap, Ranger utilized this new palette to create amazingly detailed Pokemon sprites from generations 1 through 3, while still maintaining the vibrance of the Pokemon game's sprite work with more dynamic lighting, shading, and distinct features of these moving animated sprites. As you can see below, the animation used on Kingdra, for example, shows a dynamic lunging motion in a forward direction of attack, or you can look at Arbok, for example, that has a static sprite being coiled up with slight movement to show its readiness to strike. This is not only applied to Pokemon, however. Human characters have a similar level of detail and sprite work put into them, with the game's characters and NPCs having great use of the before-mentioned larger color palette to similar execution as the Pokemon, with well-shaded, dynamically lit sprites with distinct features given the limitations in the early presence on the DS. Now, you may be able to have great Pokemon and character models, but what about the environment? The environments in the Ranger games to me have such a unique and detailed feel to them that impressed me for an early DS title. The wide color palette of the DS and the animated portions of the environment like magma bubbling, water moving, or flowers blowing in the wind create a more alive world, similar to how the first Pokemon Mystery Dungeon tackled their environments a few months earlier to this release.
It's enough to make a grown man cry.
A notable favorite of mine from the game would be the introductory area of the game, Fall City Harbor, a solid showcase of what the game might have to offer in terms of sprite work. The dynamic wave seen in the port alongside the grayish stonework border of the harbor blends with a darkish reddish brown brick
To build brown bricks with Minecraft.
as the player sees Pokemon such as Krabby and Wingull around the port with unique idle animations, as well as multiple uniquely modeled NPCs. The player can see just what level of detail they're going to get when diving into this game. Varied environments with unique sprite work can be seen in this title. To avoid getting whacked in my sleep, there are environments with lush jungles with vibrant plant life, temperate forests brimming with grasses and trees, frigid and rocky mountainous paths, as well as highly industrialized factories, sewers, and bases, giving the game a refreshing feel in these new areas. Going beyond sprite work, the core gameplay may seem gimmicky, and I will agree to some extent. It can feel gimmicky circle simulator at first, but trust me, it can become fun and addicting over time. The basic gameplay involves the use of a styler, the tool of a Pokemon Ranger. This device gameplay-wise is used to circle around a Pokemon in order to capture it, with the goal of using said Pokemon either to traverse obstacles, heal your styler, or be used to capture other Pokemon. However, Pokemon can only be used once before being released. The game finds an interesting way to balance this one-time use of Pokemon with having a dedicated partner Pokemon in this game, either Plusle or Minun as a partner Pokemon depending on the character chosen at the beginning of the game. With the ability for Pokemon to attack back in the process of capturing, the player character has to devise strategies to capture Pokemon, with some Pokemon being more aggressive, more mobile, or even brief periods of inability to capture. The capture mechanic of the game becomes a lot more fun when you devise strategies and tactics for certain Pokemon. Now the fun comes when you have multiple Pokemon to capture at once, where the game will have large groups of Pokemon appear for you to capture in one encounter. The player can either capture them all at once in a process or whittle their numbers down slowly, capturing one at a time. For me personally, I would use both tactics to keep the game fun, as there are multiple moments in the story where this will occur. Going back to the concept of using Pokemon to help catch other Mons, each Pokemon has a set type that they belong to, with each Pokemon type giving a helpful ability in battle. One of my favorites would be the use of the water Pokemon in the game to create a large bubble that will trap Pokemon in a bubble for a brief period of time, helping catch more mobile Pokemon. These different type-based abilities are not equal, with some being better than others, but no one type feels useless in the game, which was my fear when I recently revisited the game. Beyond that, your partner Pokemon Plusle and Minun have the ability to paralyze opponents with a wide-striking electrical strike that if it comes in contact with Pokemon, it will stun them for a brief period of time, with varying size and length depending on a meter that is filled from capturing Pokemon. While this on paper seems balanced, it can lead to it being a very broken tactic used on a large group of Pokemon or more mobile Pokemon. However, I'm glad it's there for younger players or players who may not feel as confident in their capture ability. It feels less insulting compared to the Chicken Hat in Metal Gear Solid, if you know what I mean. The boss fights in this game approach the presence of a boss Pokemon with an interesting twist. A lot of the boss Pokemon in this game have unique gimmicks to create more interesting encounters, such as Muck having a toxic sludge that damages your stylus. Simply put, treat it like Reddit, completely avoid it.
Ew, you must be from Reddit. Ugh.
This hazard makes the player use Pokemon like your partner Pokemon to stun the Pokemon or a larger stylus radius. Another boss fight would be stylus, a massive Pokemon that blocks out a majority of the screen, creating difficulty in capturing the Pokemon with your partner Pokemon not being as solid of an answer to this boss fight compared to the others, leading players to create new strategies in order to tackle this difficult yet fun boss fight. The Steelix fight especially reminds me of the Link to the Past boss fight Moldor, a giant mobile worm that can be difficult when implementing previous tactics, leading to the player to come up with
a game theory.
A lot of the early game Pokemon do feel like wait, circle in terms of tactics. I feel as if the tactic is needed in the first 2 or 3 hours of the game to get the player comfortable with the controls. So if you're convinced to try this game out, thug it out till about the 2-hour mark, 3-hour mark if you feel like the game is getting a bit easier or repetitive. Trust me, it gets a lot more fun. Now, for the part you've all been waiting for. Let's talk about the plot and the implications this game has. The plot of the game is that you are joining the Pokémon Rangers, an organization that feels like it's a blend of the police and a public safety officer. Their goal is to help the Pokémon world by responding to dangers like Pokémon causing destruction, Pokémon or people in dangerous or criminal activity, or disruption of the peace. An interesting concept that leads to a breakaway from the standard Pokémon formula of being a trainer. I really do wish more games in the Pokémon world explored roles other than being a Pokémon trainer like the Ranger games do. It creates interesting gameplay ideas like mentioned earlier, alongside a new lens in the eyes of an organization that addresses common issues that would be in the Pokemon world. With this role, the main story starts with your character getting transferred to the Fiora region, a brand new region designed specifically for this game. In this region, you respond to various incidents as missions like block roads, where you need to find ways to clear them, finding lost Pokemon, stopping criminal or dangerous activity of humans/Pokemon, to even just investigating larger scale issues in the plot of the game, which leads to fun missions that lead you to explore some really unique areas. Not to spoil what happens in the game, but you stop a rock band with a bunch of people who depop some 70s clothing from destroying the region, which feels crazy from a distance but is pulled off so well it makes it a great shift from the evil team seen in the games, where at the time we would just have the Mafia and eco-terrorists at the time of Ranger's release, giving it kind of that more comedic element. So if you're a fan of Team Skull or some of the other teams like that, check this out, you'll love it. The story for this game is roughly 18 to 20 hours, depending on your playstyle. I took my time with the game on replay since I wanted to take in the sprite work, though other players might try to perform some sort of barrier skip or some speedrunning tactic to bring that time down to something like 8 minutes. As I said above, give the game about 2 to 3 hours to pick up, thug it out. The first game has a fun story, the future games have little more in-depth stories, but for the first entry, this game is a solid start. A final note I want to mention would be the characters. While not the most in-depth in writing like N from Black and White or Arvin from Scarlet and Violet, the characters in this game are pretty fun and unique, like my goat Murph, a clumsy yet heartful ranger with a bit of a reoccurring appearance in the Ranger games, or the stoic Chris, who speaks little and let his actions do the talking. These are just 2 personal favorites of mine, but there's plenty more fun characters to meet in these games. A little detail I want to mention is that the characters in this game have amazing concept art by Creatures Inc., the company who helps manage the Pokemon TCG alongside being a former company with the Earthbound staff from 8-Bit. The reason I mention this is due to the amazing work of the uniqueness of said characters. A solid favorite of mine is Spencer's design from the game. You get a sense of both confidence and a bit of aura from this character, fitting for a Ranger-based leader. If you compare this design to the Ranger leader of Fall City, Joel, you see more of a police-like look for Joel, showing how the different area ranger bases carry themselves in different roles depending on where they're stationed. Another aspect I find extremely interesting is how well marketed the spin-off is, with multiple episodes in the Pokemon anime centered around Ranger and the movie Pokemon Ranger in the Temple of the Sea. This type of marketing push is something that I find so interesting about 2000's Pokemon. It truly does feel like a push to keep people interested in the game. Now onto my final thoughts, since I wanted to talk about how you can possibly play this game now or some small details over the game that you couldn't really fit in elsewhere. So, I either sold you or you're looking for ways to play the game again from your childhood. With the advent of everyone modding their 3DS and Wii U alongside the availability of DS emulation, there are many options to play this game by doing some swashbuckling. If you're looking for the cartridge, if the above options are not possible or you feel wary, the game is roughly 20 to 25 American bucks depending on the condition. It is a great game if you have a small road trip, a small break from school or college, or just a game to take with you on the train when you're going to work. It's simple yet effective enough to make for a fun game. I've even seen people play it on their computers by hooking up a drawing tablet just to get that Ranger Circle Simulator experience to feel a little closer to that DS feel. I will warn you, the music is hit or miss for people who may not be a fan. It's not Mumbo No. 5 or Vulture's bad, but you can always bring up Apple Music or Spotify and listen to your preferred artist while playing. I played a little bit of Mad Villainy by MF Doom during segments I felt weren't the best music-wise. A final note I'll make is if you enjoyed this video, I'm trying out a new format of videos to help bring more engagement to you guys and newer viewers. If you have your own thoughts about the game or anything I said in the video, comment them down below. I check comments and respond to them to the best of my ability. With that, I am signing off.